Welcome to today's Catholic Daily Readings from Christus Dominus Bread of Life. A reading from the book of Exodus. During that time, a man from the house of Levi went out, and he took a wife from his own stock. And she conceived and bore a son. And seeing him to be handsomely formed, she hid him for 3 months. But when she was no longer able to hide him, she took a small basket woven from papyrus, and she smeared it with pitch as well as tar. And she placed the little infant inside, and she laid him in the sedges by the bank of the river. And his sister was standing at a distance, and she was considering what would happen. But then, behold, the daughter of Pharaoh descended to wash in the river, and her maids walked along the edge of the cove. And when she had seen the small basket among the papyrus, she sent one of her servants. And when it was brought, having opened it, she saw the little boy crying, and she took pity on him, and she said, "This is one of the infants of the Hebrews." And the sister of the boy said to her, "Do you want me to go and call to you a Hebrew woman who will be able to nurse the infant?" She responded, "Go." The maid went and called her mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this boy and nurse him for me. I will give you your wages." The woman took and nursed the boy, and when he was mature, she delivered him to Pharaoh's daughter. And she adopted him in place of a son, and she called his name Moses, saying, "Because I took him from the water." In those days, after Moses had grown up, he went out to his brothers, and he saw their affliction and an Egyptian man striking a certain one of the Hebrews, his brothers. And when he had looked around this way and that, and had seen no one nearby, he struck down the Egyptian, and he hid him in the sand. And going out the next day, he saw 2 Hebrews quarreling. And he said to him who was acting unjustly, "Why do you strike your neighbor?" But he responded, "Who has appointed you as leader and judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was afraid, and he said, "How has this word become known?" And Pharaoh heard this matter, and he sought to kill Moses.
Turn to the Lord in your need, and you will live. I am sunk in the abysmal swamp where there is no foothold. I have reached the watery depths, the flood overwhelms me. Turn to the Lord in your need, and you will live. But I pray to you, O Lord, for the time of your favor, O God. In your great kindness answer me with your constant help. Turn to the Lord in your need, and you will live. But I am afflicted and in pain. Let your saving help, O God, protect me. I will praise the name of God in
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Then he began to rebuke the cities in which many of his miracles were accomplished, for they still had not repented. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the miracles that were done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. Yet truly I say to you, it will be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon in the day of judgment than for you. And you, Capernaum, would you be exalted all the way to heaven? You shall descend all the way to hell. For if the miracles that were done in you had been done in Sodom, it would have remained even to this day. Yet truly I say to you, that the land of Sodom will be forgiven in the day of judgment, more so than you. Join us for today's reflection. You've heard the Christmas story so many times you could recite it in your sleep. You know John 3:16 by heart. You grew up in youth group, went to Christian camp, and have your quiet time routine down to a science. And you're bored out of your mind with God. Jesus has harsh words for people like us in today's gospel. He looks at Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum, cities that had front row seats to his miracles, and says something shocking. Pagan cities would have responded better than you did. These weren't people who rejected Jesus because they didn't know better. They rejected him because they thought they knew everything already. Here's what's terrifying. The closer you get to Christian culture, the further you can drift from Christ. The more you know about God, the less you might actually know God. Moses learned this the hard way. He grew up in Pharaoh's palace with every advantage imaginable. Hebrew by birth, Egyptian by privilege. But when he tried to help his people, everything went wrong. He killed an Egyptian, got called out by his own people, and had to flee to the desert. 40 years later, God meets him at a burning bush. Not in a palace, not in a classroom, in the wilderness, when he had nothing left to prove. The most dangerous place to be spiritually isn't in open rebellion, it's in comfortable familiarity. You've been vaccinated against Christianity by small doses of it, just enough exposure to build immunity, not enough to create transformation. Jesus weeps over these cities not because they were especially evil, but because they wasted unprecedented opportunity. They had God in their neighborhood and treated him like just another neighbor. How many times have you sat through a sermon and remained unchanged? How many times have you read scripture and felt nothing? Your spiritual advantages aren't automatic blessings, they're dangerous responsibilities. Every Sunday you sleep through increases your accountability. Every Bible verse you know by memory, but don't live by, becomes evidence against you. Stop assuming that growing up in church makes you closer to God. Stop thinking that biblical knowledge equals spiritual maturity. Stop confusing religious familiarity with divine relationship. Maybe it's time to meet God in a burning bush instead of a comfortable pew. Maybe it's time to stop being an expert on God and start being amazed by God. This is the danger of spiritual privilege. Growing up in church doesn't automatically make you closer to God. It can actually make you more resistant to him. Knowing Bible stories doesn't guarantee spiritual sensitivity. It can create spiritual numbness. When you've heard the same truths repeated hundreds of times, you stop hearing them. When you've seen the same rituals performed countless times, you stop seeing them. When you've experienced God's goodness consistently, you stop appreciating it as goodness. Jesus compares Capernaum to Sodom, saying that if the miracles performed in Capernaum had been done in Sodom, that infamous city would still be standing today. The city known for its wickedness would have responded better than the city known for its religious privilege. That's a devastating indictment of what spiritual advantage can become when it's taken for granted. But Jesus isn't just criticizing these cities, he's warning us. Every time you sit through a sermon and remain unchanged, you're acting like Chorazin. Every time you witness God's goodness and stay indifferent, you're behaving like Bethsaida. Every time you experience divine truth and walk away unaffected, you're responding like Capernaum. The question isn't whether you've been exposed to God's power. If you're hearing this, you have been. The question is whether that exposure is making you more responsive to him or more resistant to him. Spiritual privilege is not a blessing if it leads to spiritual pride. Religious knowledge is not an advantage if it creates religious arrogance. Growing up in church is not a gift if it produces someone who thinks they've graduated beyond needing God. The most dangerous place to be spiritually is not in open rebellion against God, it's in comfortable familiarity with God, not in obvious sin, but in subtle indifference, not in dramatic rejection, but in casual dismissal. Jesus weeps over these cities not because they were especially evil, but because they were especially blessed and wasted it. They had unprecedented access to divine truth and unprecedented exposure to divine power, and they squandered both. Your spiritual upbringing, your biblical knowledge, your church attendance, your Christian education, none of these things automatically make you closer to God. They can all become barriers to God if they create the illusion that you've already arrived spiritually. The most spiritually dangerous people are often those who know the most about Christianity but have stopped being amazed by Christ, who can quote Scripture but have stopped being changed by Scripture, who can explain the gospel but have stopped being gripped by the gospel. Don't let your spiritual advantages become spiritual obstacles. Don't let your religious familiarity breed religious contempt. Don't let your exposure to God's power make you immune to God's power. The cities that saw Jesus face to face became more accountable than the cities that only heard about him from a distance. Your knowledge increases your responsibility. Your exposure increases your accountability. The question isn't what you know about God. The question is how what you know about God is changing how you respond to God.